And they moved away from family and friends. Sometimes I like to share with couples that are having problems communicating a little exercise. I say, okay, say, Kenny, you got this wonderful job down in Phoenix. Your company, I know it's your company, but you had this great opportunity to move down to Phoenix. You were going to be able to make much more money than you could here. You were thinking about all the golf courses down there. I mean, everything seemed to add up to your list of why we should go. So you go home to Jennifer and you say, Jennifer, pack up the bags. We're moving to Phoenix. What do you think that would happen? Okay. Believe me, men, that is not a wise choice. It's not a good thing to do. So you say, Jennifer, pack up your bags. We're moving to Phoenix. And Jennifer says, wait a minute. And Jennifer has her own list, right? And she has her own list. Well, here the kids are going to this good school. You know, they're involved in all these things here that they won't be able to be involved in there. What about friends? What about family? You know, which list is more important? Which list makes more sense? The list that makes the best sense is the two lists together, right? To take and take the input of husband and wife and make a decision based on that. You see, here Naomi was given up really all the security, their ancestral home. She was giving up their land rights to the nation of Israel. She was giving up all the friends. And, you know, they made a decision to go ahead and move. But it was a tough decision. Do you see the faithful wife that Naomi is? She goes ahead and makes the best of it. Amen? I think that's important. Sometimes, especially if we know it's God's will. I approach my wife a little differently. I say, honey, I think that God may be asking us to move to, well, in this case, Rifle. Okay? And immediately she starts her list. Leave the grandkids. I mean, her list is pretty important. But ultimately I say, honey, why don't you pray about it? She always hates when I say that. Because if it is God's will, God's going to speak to her heart too. Right? And He did. And that's the way God speaks to us as a family. So if you're going to make a move, don't necessarily do it like Elimelech did. Okay, wife, we're moving. At least I assume that's the way he did it. But she was faithful. She loved her family enough to make sure that they held intact, that they went together. You see, a mother doesn't give up. A mother doesn't give up. There was a survivor of a shipwreck washed up on a small island, and he cried out to God to save him. And every day he scanned the horizon for help, but he only got more depressed. He eventually went ahead and was able to build a small hut and put his possessions in it. But one day, after hunting for some food, he came back to his hut to find that it had gone up in flames. He felt completely devastated. He felt like this was the last blow. And he was just wailing and lamenting, and when a ship appeared on the horizon. And the captain sent a boat in, and when he came on board, he said to the crew, "How did you know I was there?" They replied, "Well, we saw your smoke signal." To make the best of a situation, to not give up and do the best that you can. What happens in Naomi's life is sometimes, I imagine it's not a long time, her husband dies. That's a big blow. She still has her two sons, and they have married Moabite women. So she has some family around her, but her husband dies. Then her two sons die. I don't know what tragic circumstance caused these deaths, but those deaths were three very serious blows to Naomi's heart. Those that she loved the most, her family, was all gone. Later on in the chapter, we find when she came back to Israel, they said, well, here is Naomi, which her name meant pleasant. And she said, no, change my name to Mara, which means bitter, because God has dealt me a bitter hand. You ever felt like that? You ever felt like the whole world was caving in on you? Maybe on your family as well. And you feel like there's just no way to look up. You can't even lift your eyes that far. Believe me, God still is at work in your life. God still has plans for you. She had lost her home and possessions and went through all 5 stages of grief, perhaps. You know what those are, right? Perhaps you can identify these stages in your own life. Denial and isolation as the first stage. Anger, second stage. Sometimes we get stuck in that one. Bargaining, a third stage. Depression, a fourth stage. And finally, acceptance and moving on with life. And so Naomi had gone through those stages, and now she was into acceptance, and now she was ready to move on to her life, and she thought, I'll just return home. I'll return back to my home where I have relatives, back where there are people that for a support group. I'll just return home. And so she packs up her bags and she takes off. Now, I want us to see that the depth of her love there. Not only love doesn't give up, but she has shared her love. A mother shares her love. It's not something you keep to yourself. I remember a skit that my kids used to do, and one of them would have this wonderful thing in their hands, and the other would say, "What is it?" And they'd say, "Oh, it's fantastic. It's unbelievable." And they'd say, "Well, can I see it?" "Oh, no, I can't let any of it go. I'm afraid if it escapes, I won't have it anymore. And it just makes me feel so good." And the other one, of course, and you know my kids, they do this really well. "Let me see it." Come on. I got to see it. And I said, no. And so he walks off with it. Later on, there's another person out there with something like that. And said, "Well, can I see it?" "Well, yeah. And you want to see it? It's pretty small, but you can see it there." And I said, "Well, can I have some?" "Well, I don't know. I don't have that much." "Yeah, you can have some." And so they take it and they're going, "Wow, this is really cool." And the other one said, "Wow. Oh, what's going on here?" And what they have, the more they give it away, the more it grows. Honestly, folks, that is love, isn't it? As my wise wife told my son when he was afraid he couldn't love his own kids because he loved his nephew so much that he was afraid he wouldn't have enough love for his own kids. My wise wife told him, love is multiplied. It's not divided. Right? Love is multiplied. It's not divided. It's only when you encapsulate it and you hold it to yourself. It's only when you put restrictions so much on your love that no one can live in the freedom of your love that it disappears, that it grows smaller. But when you freely express it, and when you freely show it, it only multiplies. And so that's what happened here. Someone asked Susan Wesley, she had 12 children, 11 children, which one of 11 children she loved the most? She wisely replied, "I love the one who's sick until he's well, the one who's away until he comes home." That's why I left for 30 years, so my mom would love me. was expressed to the daughter-in-laws. The love that Ruth expressed to them was reciprocated by the daughter-in-laws. They felt loved. They were not her biological children, but I'm telling you, you won't find a biological child who loved a mom more than Ruth loved Naomi. Naomi had no support system. She was a widow and destitute. In that society, there was no resources out there for a mom, a single mom, someone who had no one to take care of her. There were no resources. So Ruth became that resource. Ruth loved her mother-in-law and made a total commitment to her mother-in-law. There was a young couple in college that went into a photography studio and wanted a framed picture. So they took the picture, and the young man said, "Now, I wanted the picture framed and put together. Well, in order to get that picture of his girlfriend duplicated." For other reasons, he decided to take it out of the frame. And on the back of the picture, notice this inscription: